Good evening. Welcome to Fans Advocacy 101, evening edition. We're going to have a session just the same content tomorrow at noon as well. So if you know people who would like this after we spend the next hour together, please have them register and come. We are so glad you decided to spend the evening with us. My name's Elise Goyer. I'm Executive Director of Faith Action Network. And I just have to say that our staff has put a lot of time and care into making sure we have everything put together that will help you advocate in the legislative session. So whether you're brand new to advocacy or whether you've done it a dozen times and just want to get your skills refreshed, you belong here, and we're so glad you've come. The state legislative session launched on Monday, as you probably well know, and even before it launched on Sunday, there had already been 333 bills filed in the House and 267 bills filed in the Senate. So they just were ready to go and, out of the gate very quickly in this 30-day short legislative session that's going to move quickly. But before we get started, I just want to mention that we were so delighted to have been able to invite, thanks to the Speaker of the House, an imam and a rabbi to open the proceedings Monday with prayer, and alongside a tribal member. Oh my God, I'm just blanking, but I'll come back to the tribe. And I wanted to quote Imam Omar Kadori of the Olympia, Islamic Center of Olympia. In his prayer, he said, "Show us a good path. Lay before us a way that covers our common needs. Give us the strength to traverse it. Spark between us cooperation so we may fulfill our responsibilities as stewards of our world." I thought that was really beautiful way to begin the session. Squaxin Tribe, thank you. Thank you, Tomo. It just slipped my mind for a minute there, but there was also drumming from the Squaxin Tribe. And then Rabbi Seth Goldstein of Temple Beth Hatphilo spoke to the House floor and said, "The challenges we face, or grant us to face the challenges ahead of us and the vision to meet them. We'll need curiosity, compassion, and commitment." And he cited a word in Hebrew that means, I am here, I am present, I am ready. And so I say to you all, we are here, we are present, we are ready, and turn it over to the staff. Thanks for being here tonight.
Great. I think this is my turn. I'm Elizabeth Dickinson, Partnership Coordinator. And let's move to the next slide. So glad you're with me. And I always feel like any how-to should be grounded in our why. So want to start off for a couple of minutes just thinking about why we do advocacy. And for me, the first and major reason is that I'm called to it out of my faith tradition, my spiritual tradition. And you can see here in this slide that there are sacred writings in the Quran, in the Bible, in the Japji Sahib, which is the Sikh, some of the Sikh sacred scriptures in Buddhist writing that really lift up justice, compassion, and community building. So next slide. Also, we do advocacy because, as we heard from Elise, there are 600 bills already filed, and we have ones that really represent our values and convictions, and we want to make sure that those get heard. We really bring stories from our lived experience, from the communities that to which we belong, and so have really important things to share. As Nancy Amadei, advocate extraordinaire, said, experts can be hired, but real people with real stories cannot. And I think we are real people with real stories. And the other quote that just came to me is from Carol Heilbrunner, that power consists in choosing which stories shall be told. And through our advocacy and our showing up, we are helping to choose which stories can be told. Next slide. And finally, our advocacy makes a difference. And there are a number of ways that we shape the work that the Washington government does. And one of them is that through our advocacy, we can help establish rights and protections. This was true. One example of this was the 2018 Washington Voting Rights Act that promoted more equal representation by allowing local governments to improve their election system. Another example of that we're working on in 2024 is our Keep Our Care Act, which addresses some of the harmful effects of the mergers of or buyouts of healthcare organizations. Next slide. We also, through our advocacy, help to shape how we bring in revenue and the programs that we fund. So, so exciting that last year, with our help, the state legislature voted $28 million to replace expired pandemic food benefits, to fund food assistance, and gave a record amount, $400 million, to the Housing Trust Fund. We know that we've got a lot of bills coming up that have to do with revenue, like the extreme wealth tax, as well as ways that we can spend our money on electrifying school buses and feeding school children with free meals and much more. So know that we have an opportunity to shape this as well. Next. I thought you might be interested in seeing just where our state money goes to. It is a reflection both of the requirements, the laws of where money has to go, as well as a moral document in terms of what we hope for and what is important to our legislators and to us. So just a quick look at that, make sure we have time. Let's move to the next. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. You're anticipating me. Through our advocacy, we can help create programs. In 2022, we helped establish an alert system for missing and murdered Indigenous women and people. It's highly effective. You can actually get on it. So that's just a side note, but now in my inbox, I get notices of when there are such alerts, and it is really a nice reminder to me of that ongoing oppression that happens. But it has been effective in helping those missing and murdered Indigenous people get found. In 2023. There was a new program that was created, the Health Equity for Immigrants campaign, which helps give access to healthcare for undocumented immigrants who are low income. So creating programs can make a really big difference in people's lives. And finally, the last one, the next slide. Our advocacy can help develop rules and regulations. One example of this is the electrifying of cars sold in Washington by 2035. This coming session, we can have a strong voice as we seek rent stabilization for for our Washington citizens. We know that every $100 increase monthly in rent results in a 9% increase in homelessness. So just huge impacts that we can have through our voices. Next slide. So that was a quick overview of the why for advocacy. And so most of the rest of the time, we're going to be talking about the how. And as in a conversation that we all had recently as staff, we really focused in on the idea of how important building relationships is to advocacy, how integral it is to the work that we do. And so it's not only about who we advocate with and for, but also the faith, our fellow faith communities that we can bring in and have conversations with about what our values are. But also I find it helpful to think about developing and strengthening relationships with our legislators. And Jess is going to talk about that a little bit later. Next slide. So we have multiple ways that we can influence, that we can enter into the advocacy process. I'm going to just highlight a couple of these. The first one, when we give our legislators ideas for bills before the session or at another time, we do this as FAN with our coalition partners. We come up with ideas, and Kristen, our policy director, is in sort of year-long conversation with legislators. You too can do this. You can have ask for a meeting with your legislator sometime during the summer if you have some particular concerns or some ideas. Another entry point, one that is really highlighted right now, is when a bill is being discussed in policy committee. So we know that really the process of getting a bill to the floor starts in the policy committee. And so we need to let the policy committee know that this is a bill that's important to us, either pro or con. So that's why you've been seeing, if you've been following the e-news and the action alerts, that we're starting off with signing in at committee hearings so that our voice can be heard. The other one that I'd like to really lift up is that once a bill gets to the House or Senate floor, that is a really great time to be in touch with your own legislators. Although you can do that, it's helpful to do that anytime during the process because all the legislators talk to each other. So there may be conversations between your legislator who may not be on a committee, but knows a committee member well. So that can happen anytime, but particularly as we want to, as those bills hit the floor of the House and Senate. So next, I think next slide. As you start the process of advocacy, we would like to recommend two resources that we have found you can really rely on. Of course, the Faith Action Network website is one that we would recommend, and we're going to explore that in a minute. The other one is the Washington State Legislature website, ledge.wa.gov. We will be sending out links after this to all of you, so no need to feel like you madly have to take notes. We'll be sending you these. But the Washington State Legislature, you can see, has gotten a democracy award for how advocate friendly, people friendly, and accessible and informative this website is. So we really recommend that as well. Next. Okay, so it's time to explore FAN's website for a couple minutes. Alex is going to get there. So here's our homepage. It's going to take us to advocacy, and you see that there's a drop-down menu. If you go even further down, let's see. There we go. Let's start with the legislative agenda. There we go. And want to invite Elise to share about this.
So each year we create a legislative agenda, and we don't do this alone, and we do this with our partners, and we do this with all of you. So our legislative agenda, as Alex scrolls through it, you'll see is quite long. And people always say, can't FAN just choose one or two things? And the reality is we're a statewide, multi-faith, multi-issue organization that people care about a lot of things. And our faiths call us to act for a lot of things. So, and the interrelationship of these issues is very strong. So if we're working on poverty and climate, there are connections. You know, if we're working on criminal justice and hunger, there are connections. So we, over the years, have sorted it into these 8 categories. You'll see healthcare, public safety, the environment, civil rights, immigrant and refugee rights. Thanks for scrolling backwards. Housing and homelessness, as I said, climate before. The safety net is an important part because we know faith communities are part of keeping people alive, and food banks, meal programs, shelters, and then economic justice, changing our tax system. So we just want to give you this overview and say you'll find more details about this on the website under the legislative agenda. There's a downloadable PDF right at the top there that you can download and share in your faith community. It will change and tweak a little bit during session, but it's pretty much established now with the help of you all through different meetings. We have clusters and summits. The policy committee, which reviews things that are cropping up. The governing board, who is the final voice to say, yes, this is what we're going to work on this year. But all in collaboration with about 30 coalition partners who specialize and become the topic experts in each of these areas, and also establish strategies. So FAN comes alongside those. That's it for me, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Elise. So the next section is fact sheets, I believe. So if you are ready, if you've chosen your 2 or 3 bills or whatever that you want to focus on, Tomo Duke has linked fact sheets to each of these sections, these bills, and you can see just let's do the WRAP Act. You can just see, you can hit it and get some talking points if you are thinking ahead about coming to IFAD or writing a note to your legislature. So we've got fact sheets on almost all of our areas. Still have to catch up on housing. Has taken a while to get negotiated, but that's available to you. The next piece that is available is the bill tracker. This again is so FAN will do this a lot for you. We'll in our weekly e-news, we'll let you know sort of which are the important things to weigh in on. But if you have some special things of your own that you want to follow, let's hit that that bill tracker. We have it set up so that you can see the description, the bill number, the sponsor, and the status. So how far, where is it in a policy committee? Is it in a fiscal committee? Is it on the floor? Um, and you'll note that the bills are linked. So when you click on a bill, it will take you to the Washington State Legislative um, website, and you can see again a lot of information about the bill and where it is. And if you can go back up. Oh yes. So and with two possible, they have changed the website this year to make it super easy. So if you go to a bill page, you can just click on one of those dark green buttons, one to send a comment to your legislator, and the other to sign in for a committee to state your position on a bill for committee hearings. And Brianna's going to talk about that later. But just we can go back and forth. So if we could go back to the website, and Alex, let's go to the advocacy toolkit, and we're going to just do a less thorough look at this. But if you can click on learn the basics and see there are a bunch of things linked, like find your district. Let's just at this point, so we have time for our interactive stuff. Let's just go quickly through each of the pieces. Contacting your legislators, mobilizing, a ton of stuff on that, on how to write an effective letter, mobilizing communities. You can see like how to create a letter writing campaign, for example, and we'll be adding to this piece. And then finally, the media piece, which has even the list of media outlets that you can connect with. So lots of information in that toolkit. And then the final piece of that advocacy is the take action. Let's at least go to that. And this is just something that a place you can get to really fast if you're wondering, oh, I've got 15 minutes. What can I do right now? We're going now backwards through through what we had our opportunities before. So you'll want to kind of focus in on the top one, and you can see that we're lifting up two things right now: a federal letter, and then that orange button that will take you to the e-news that went out for that week. So I think so. Just a quick way to take action, and I think we can go to the next slide. Sorry, Alex, I took too much time at the beginning, just trying to catch us up. So just a couple slides to let you be able to see what the Washington State Legislative page looks like. There's just a ton of information. You can see that there's the hotline, the legislative hotline. You can get to on the drop-down menu, the menu on the left. You can find out who your legislators are, find out more about them. You can go to bill information, to the Legislative Information Center. So all of those pieces are linked. This again is at ledge.wa.gov. And here we are in the Legislative Information Center of the Washington State Legislature. And it's just shorthand. So, I want to contact my legislator. It has all of the links just right in there for you. And I think we can move to the next one and invite Jess Ingman, our Regional Coordinator for Central Washington, to share.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Good evening, everyone. I'm coming to you from Wenatchee tonight. So I'm going to talk about a little bit. One of the key ways that we develop relationships through advocacy is knowing who our legislators are. And so right up on this page, you'll see examples of Representatives Bateman and Berg, and those were found through the Washington State Legislator website, where you put in your address, it'll show you your district, and you can click through, find the homepage, bios, bills that representatives and senators are sponsoring, and a lot more. And especially, you can see here that their committees are listed, and that's really helpful for us as we are following certain bills. When we notice something that we're advocating for is in their committee, these are areas where the legislators have particular influence and interest. So we want to kind of look for that alignment. And another thing that I can't recommend enough is when you get to their homepage is sign up for their email updates. This gives you a good sense of their values, their priorities, their talking points. What do you have in common with your legislators? It's also the place where you can be the first to know about town halls or listening sessions, and it gives you a chance to see what bills and projects they are considering successes. And it's a good way to find, if there's something to thank them for that they've done through these updates. They're letting people know what they think is important and what they've done. So it's a great way to learn and get to know this person who is representing you in your community. Next slide. So further in the session, we are going to go into a lot more particulars about how to do in person and Zoom, how to advocate online, how to make a phone call, how to sign in and testify in committee. But what I want to just emphasize here is this last one, the importance of attending town halls and other local events. It's one that I found especially helpful. And in this slide, you'll see a photo here of members of Sunny Slope Church and Wenatchee for Immigrant Justice. And we're meeting with Senator Brad Hawkins in the 12th District. And because we were on his mailing list, we received an invitation to the listening session he was having. And instead of driving 3.5 hours to Olympia, we were able to gather a group of us in Wenatchee, and we had 30 minutes with him. This gave us time to share several stories about the Health Equity for Immigrants campaign and how important it is. He had not heard of it. So it was really important to have that meeting. Another great way to advocate are through town halls, and especially during the legislative session. Our legislators will usually do it virtually because they're in Olympia. And it's a chance where they want to share with constituents, all the work that they're doing, but there's also an opportunity often to ask a live question or submit a question ahead of time. And so just one quick example, last legislative session, there were 3 of us from Sunny Slope Church attending a town hall. 2 of us were called on to speak about health funding for health equity for immigrants. And then a local news agency covered the town hall and quoted Lori Nichols and Jamie Christ. And I think Lori's here tonight. So our message was not only shared with legislators, but with a wider community. So these are also really important places where we can be raising our voice together. Next slide, I think back to Elizabeth.
So just quickly highlighting some details for each of these ways of advocating. So about the most effective, as Jess was saying, was to be in person, to be able to see each other's faces and really connect that way. And of course, we want to lift up Interfaith Advocacy Day on February 8th as a prime way to do that, where we will try to give you meetings with all of your legislators at that point. And then there's also, if you are in Eastern Washington, a chance on January 27th to meet in person. And as Jess noted, you can, if you can't attend either of these, you can make an appointment with your legislator and try to gather some of yourselves together and have a meeting, particularly outside of the legislative session, which is super busy for everyone. Next, oh, and the other, if you can't make IFAD, there are also other organizations who have lobby days, and we share a list of those. So take advantage, go once, twice, 3 times to Olympia, that's great. Online, we are so lucky now to be able, particularly as a result of COVID, one of the few silver linings, to really reach out to our legislators from the comfort of our own armchairs. Primarily, we do that around particular bills, but if there may be times that you simply want to say thank you to your legislator, or lay out some general values, or share an invitation. In that case, you could use just get in touch with them directly. And the address for that is the legislator's first name, period, last name, at ledge.wa.gov. So for me, that would be rebecca.saldana@ledge.wa.gov. The second method is really to go to the legislative website and type in, go look for bill information and type in the bill that you're interested in, and then hit this green button as we talked about earlier, and you can share whatever convictions you want around that bill. The third method is that you can sign Action Network letters that have been drafted by FAN, and Toma will talk about that later. Next. And finally, if you have just a short time and you are not feeling the most articulate, you can always make a phone call to the legislative hotline. There are people who work there who are happy to help you craft a message. They are very knowledgeable, and in one phone call, you can get a message about a bill to all 3 of your legislators and the governor. It has interpreter services, and during the legislative session is open Monday to Friday, 8 to 7 p.m. Next, and I'm inviting Brianna.
I'm Brianna Diltz. I'm the Eastern Washington Regional Organizer, and I'm joining you from Spokane, over on the east side of the state. So during a hearing, there's a couple of ways you can get involved in the legislative process. The first of which we briefly touched on, I'll go into a little bit more detail, is stating your position on a bill without testifying. So this is what we call signing in pro or con. So while I explain this, I'm going to share my screen so that you can get a sense of what it looks like. So should be able to see this now. This is the Senate Housing Bill, improving residential stability, or housing stability for tenants. As you can see, it's scheduled for a hearing in the Senate Housing Committee tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. So to state your position, you go to sign up to testify or submit written testimony. Those aren't your only 2 options, but if you wanted to also do testimony, you would sign up for here. So you want to make sure you've checked the right bill. And then, which if you're going from the bill page, it should already be checked, but never hurts to double check. And then you click, I would like my position noted for the legislative record. And you can select pro, con, or other. Typically for most of our bills, you'll be selecting pro. And then you can enter in your information. And then if you're a member of a faith community, or if you're a member of a FAN network advocating faith community, you could put member of your faith community or member of Faith Action Network. And then you submit it. So it's really easy, and the committee that's deciding the fate of the bill sees all those numbers of people that have signed in, pro or con, and it can kind of help them get a sense of what the people think and what the people want. And right now, that's kind of one of the most effective ways that people can advocate. As it's early in the session, these bills are in their policy committees, so making sure that those move on from there is really important. And you can sign in and sign up for testimony up to 1 hour before the hearing. So I believe for that bill, it would close at 9 a.m. Tomorrow, an hour before that hearing starts. And you can also submit testimony, as you saw. You can submit written or sign up for in-person or virtual testimony, where you'd be talking in the hearing. If you sign up for that, however, the time can be lessened depending on time constraints. So you could only have 1 minute for testimony. And typically with bills, the sponsoring kind of advocacy organization that has been doing a lot of work kind of in the pre-session to get the bill set up, they'll have a group of testifiers or a panel of testifiers that have been prepped beforehand that are often signed up to testify as well. And so that's kind of a big summary of all the different ways that you can participate using our website and the Legislative Information Center, which is a great tool. We're going to open it up for some questions for about like 5 minutes to see if you have any questions on the logistics of how to advocate or anything.
Thanks, Brianna. My name is Blake Alford. I'm the office coordinator, and I will be the question and answer facilitator for a few minutes for us. If you do have a question, please use the hand raise function, and we'll do our best to get to you as soon as possible. Hi, Laura, go ahead.
Hi. We have in our church, we have people who want to help with this process. Our goal has always been to try to make it easier, but I think it's kind of hard to get these things done online. You know, I've tried bringing a laptop, but you can only take one, you know, and that's it. Any suggestions for how to, I mean, the only thing I can think of is to like make a postcard and have, you know, do postcards, but I don't know if anyone else has found another way to get, you know, people involved. We send weekly updates, but I'm not sure that's even reaching people. So I'm looking for ideas.
Thanks, Laura. Elizabeth or Elise, any ideas?
So one of the suggestions I might have around signing in for legislation is that you could have a petition around a hearing available at your church, and then take a picture of it and submit it as written testimony for the hearing for the policy committee.
Oh, okay. So in other words, you can take a picture of the signatures on it.
Well, so I just came up with that answer.
I
But
think it's great.
I don't know why you couldn't do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Creative thinking. Excellent.
I would love to respond just to point out other organizations are getting good at getting people to sign in pro-con as well. So you will have seen in the past on gun bills, you know, thousands of signatures, right? I'd encourage people to follow some of the housing bills that are protecting renters, because the landlord lobby is very strong, and the groups the groups against those bills are getting people organized as well. So those, can't underestimate the value right now of the pro-con lists of people, and to show the faith community is strong in supporting these bills. Thanks.
Thanks, Elise. But I want to pass it back to Bree to talk about effective messaging.
Thank you, Blake. And I put this in the chat, but if there's a bill that you are really passionate about and you want to make sure you don't miss a thing, sometimes hearings get rescheduled. At the bill information page, you can sign up for bill notifications, and those go straight to your inbox so you don't miss anything. So our bill tracker is updated weekly, but things might change. Like, the day before, it might get moved to a different time. So I'm going to talk briefly about some effective messaging. So whether you're writing a letter, submitting an email, or submitting testimony, or even meeting with your legislator in a meeting, maybe at IFAD, or if you're going to a town hall, or if you get a meeting with them at another time during the session. It's important to know what you want to say and how to make that messaging effective. So these are some tips from our guide to developing an effective message, which is in that toolbox or toolkit that Elizabeth shared. So the first thing is, who are you? So you want to introduce yourself with your name, your district, are you their constituent, and your organization or faith community if you belong to one. And perhaps if you're at a town hall or if you're at IFAD, maybe saying, I'm here with 10 other individuals from my faith community. That can kind of help show that there are others that support your message. Second, what's your issue? This one's really important. You don't want to assume that your legislator knows the ins and outs of the particular issue that you're there to talk to them about. They have their policy plates full with many different issues, and they're likely not an expert on every single topic. So you want to briefly share about the issue, and you can incorporate talking points or statistics. Those can be found on those helpful fact sheets that Elizabeth pointed out. And those can help share like the scope of the issue. And later on in Why Do You Care, you'll probably share a story, but you could also share some stories in explaining that issue as well. And it's also important, it's easy to get lost kind of in the weeds of policy or in the weeds of all these kind of interconnected issues. But remember to keep it brief. You'll likely, if you're meeting with them, you won't have too much time. And you want to keep things brief in an email and other things. So you can always follow up later. You can leave literature with them, or maybe follow up with a phone call or another email afterwards. And so explaining and why you care, explaining why the issue is important to you and others in your faith community. You might speak from personal experience or those close to you if you don't have personal experience. And sharing why it's important. Maybe you speak from your core values. As faith communities, we value justice and oftentimes service. Faith communities are providing services to folks in need. So really, if you have experience with that, try and bring in those stories, because at the end of the day, stories is what the legislators will remember. They get numbers and graphs all the time, but stories are really what resonates. And then wrapping up, you want to highlight why they should care. What things do they care about? If you're signed up for their email lists or you know what committees they're on, you can kind of loop into maybe what they already care about or what they've seen as a success. Does this bill fit within that? And what's happening in their district or community. They're there to serve the people in their district. So if this is really an issue in their community, really highlighting that and why they should care about that. And then last, but certainly not least, probably the most important thing is telling them what you want them to do about it. So you want to have a clear to-do or an ask, a commitment that you can hold them to. You want to be as specific as you can. Just asking for support is pretty vague. So you want to say, ask for a yes or no vote, or maybe you want them to sponsor a bill or bring one up for vote. And then keeping the dialogue open is great. If you are in a meeting with them, having time for them to ask follow-up questions, or asking if you could follow up with them or leave that literature with them that they can review later. And then certainly thanking them at this time too. And making sure to follow up with them is important, especially if they've supported legislation in the past. Thanking them is really important. Next slide, please. And so now you've kind of got those building blocks of your message, things you want to cover. There's some other tips that can help. So tailoring your message to the platform. Obviously, a testimony is going to be quite a bit different from a phone call or an email. So tailoring it to that specific platform. And then knowing your audience, are they already a supporter? Are they against this? That can kind of help you figure out what you want them to ask what you want to ask them to do, and are they going to actually do that? And are there maybe shared self-interest that you can kind of appeal on with that? You want to be brief and consistent. Again, it just really helps with creating your message and also making sure that they're engaged. And sharing your story, emphasizing your values, thanking them, and then lastly, I didn't write this on there, but believing in yourself. You don't have to be a policy expert to do this. Really sharing your stories is one of the most important things. So, and just a sec, we'll open it back up for some group discussion, but I wanted to share an example of a brief message kind of incorporating all these things. So, hello, legislator. My name is Brianna Diltz. I live in the 3rd District and I'm a part of Faith Action Network. Thank you for your support on many of our bills last year, especially reducing hunger for school-age kids. I hope that you will continue to support policies that further justice and equity by voting yes on House Bill 2114, improving housing stability for tenants. As you may know, Spokane has seen skyrocketing rents in the past few years. Data shows that rents in Spokane have risen 29.3% since July 2020, whereas most incomes only increased about 5% annually. This has left tenants subject to high rents, and rents continue to rise at unsustainable rates. As a renter myself, I felt the squeeze, but I was lucky to have a 5% increase that I could afford. But my close friends received rent increases nearing 20% or more percent. This vital legislation would help tenants in the 3rd District, especially people on limited or fixed incomes, by improving housing stability and affordability with a reasonable 5% cap on rent increases statewide. Please vote yes. So that's pretty short. It could be said in a phone call, and it helps show them why it's important to me, and that I'm in their district and it's important to others. So we're going to open it up. Is there some maybe values or stories that you all in crafting a message maybe would emphasize to your legislator? And you can use the raise hand feature. If you can't find it, just unmute yourself and we'll try and get to you.
Yes, as Jess Ingman mentioned, here in Wenatchee, we had a listening session with our senator, Brad Hawkins, maybe 3-4 months ago. And he was very good at listening to what we had to say. I don't know that he agreed with everything, but he was a pleasure to meet with for this listening session. It was Sunny Slope, some of us from Sunny Slope, Church of the Brethren, as well as Wenatchee for Immigrant Justice. Last February, we actually participated, Jess, myself, and Lori Nichols, in a virtual town hall with our 2 Republican representatives. And I had the opportunity to actually speak. And I had some data that I presented. I initially started out by thanking them for some of the things that I did some research to see what they had done. And we were talking about the health equity. And when I presented some of the data that I had in talking points, it was very interesting because they kind of shut me down. So what I did was, after we got out of this meeting, I went ahead and emailed them pretty much my talking points and my data. And didn't get much of a reply back, but at least we keep, letting them know how we feel and what we think.
Thank you, Jamie. That's excellent use of, following up. Yeah. Laura, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminded me of some people I've talked to over the years seem to think the best way to get through is to use almost like demanding language. And I'm wondering if you want to speak to that technique as opposed to being respectful and trying to find common ground. Anybody?
I'll answer briefly and then others can add. One of the things I was reminded of in, doing testimony or a meeting with your legislator is taking the moral high ground is, I think, an important aspect. I mean, you can be demanding and hold them to commitments. That's really important, while still being respectful. I think that adds more value to your argument in the long run, just from my personal experience, and can help. And it's like Jess highlighted, it's a relationship that you're developing, and being super demanding and maybe less respectful might not help the relationship grow or continue. It might kind of backfire in the long run. So those are kind of my first thoughts and impressions, if any others want to share.
I guess I would just say in this divided time, however we can, lift up our moral grounding, our deep concerns in a respectful way and continue talking is going to be countercultural, certainly. And we certainly could use more practice at it. You can be firm and you can be respectful. I truly believe. And in our state, at least legislators still talk to each other across the aisle. Not true in other states where they walk out, if they're not getting their way. So I think we could all use some more training in that, good point, Laura. And maybe a training we do along, through this year of sharp polarization would be how to talk across difference, right?
Thank you, everyone. Those are some great questions. I want to keep us going. We have a little bit more to share, and then we'll have some time for you all to practice some of the things we talked about. So I will pass it to Tomo to share more about our Action Network letter.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tomo Duke. I am FAN's Hunger Advocacy Fellow. As Bree said, it's time to practice what we just learned. Those are great tips grounded in real experiences. So I really appreciate all that was shared. So we'll take some time together to write a letter individually in your own place to our legislators from our respective districts. Writing to legislators is one way of advocacy that's available throughout the session and an opportunity for legislators to hear from you, in addition to more prompt and time-sensitive actions like signing in on bills or testifying for a hearing. And especially if you can't make it in person to Olympia, this could be your tool that day to let them know you're part of FAN's advocacy, even though you are not physically present. And as it's been emphasized, it's important that your legislators hear from you and are at least aware of the bills that you care about, no matter their committees. And especially, I would say, for the bills that ask for budgets, which would be indicated on our legislative agenda, those bills don't have hearings. So hearing from you this way is very important. So with that being said, to write a letter, we use this platform called Action Network, and I will walk through how it works. In case they're first-time users, I'll share screen first before I share the link to you all so we can focus on the same screen. All right. Let me know if you can't see the screen, but I believe you all can. So once you open this page to write a letter during this session, you will see on your right side of the page those boxes where you put your information. If you are on your phone, you probably have to scroll down and see it at the bottom. Once you put your information, your address, postal code, click Start Writing, and you would land at the second page. There are some tips on the top. And then you scroll down, you see your district representatives and senator. Make sure that they are correct. They should be correct. And then there's a little template here that Fan has prepared for you. So what you will do now is just to fill this out, this template, and make it your own, remembering the tips that Brianna just shared. And if you get stuck, there are also guiding questions at the top of the page right here. So please feel free to use them as your guide to reflect on your stories, experiences, observations. And I also encourage you to look at our legislative agenda, which is this hyperlink on the top of the screen. If you click it, you get to our legislative agenda. So I encourage you to pick one or two items from the bills that you care about the most. And one important thing is don't forget to mention the name of the bill and if they have the bill number, the numbers as well, so that legislators will be able to identify and locate the bills quickly. All right, so that being said, I am going to share the link in the chat. All you need is the device that you are on right now or your phone if you prefer. And it will take about a couple minutes, 2 minutes or so to start writing. I'll play a music, background music, but that doesn't mean that this is a send-off music. So we'll come back after you all start writing. All right, thank you. Please send it over after this meeting, the letter to your legislators. I think we can now invite back.
This is Elizabeth Dickinson. Again, I don't think I introduced myself at the top of this. I'm partnership coordinator with FAN. So we know that particularly if you're new to this, it can feel a little bit like a stretch. I think the more you spend time doing it, the more you have a sense of the web of relationships that support you in this work. And it's important just that we congratulate ourselves for the efforts that we make and find some way to treat ourselves after. And then back to Jess.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Go to the next slide here. One of my favorite photos. It's actually from Laura Rathbone's community, I think, Shalom UCC in Richland, but they are actually celebrating their advocacy in their worship service. And I think it's just so important, especially, in polarized times and also times where maybe we're dealing with heavy things as we gather as faith communities. To have time to celebrate steps that we do take forward together is so crucial. And this slide also includes other ways that you might bring it back to your community. Connecting for food or fellowship after doing advocacy together, setting up a Take 5 table with postcards, laptops for people to write emails or maybe sign a petition that you're going to attach to for a testimony. You can invite legislators to a social service site or a forum, and FAN will also be sharing an opportunity. We have a member who is going to offer some fellowship and connecting over Zoom for people who want to engage in advocacy together over this session. So look for that next upcoming e-news. Next slide.
Thank you all so much for being here this afternoon, spending your lunchtime with us. I want to close us with a short prayer from the Buddhist tradition. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles, and for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky, until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened. Have a good afternoon, everyone.